Hi, my name's Tom Holt. I'm Head of Strategy at UNRVLD, and today I'm going to take you through a few digital insights for 2023 impacting on the financial services sector. So what we're going to cover, I'm going to have a look at the current digital landscape. I'm going to explore the concept of composability in financial services. I'm going to look at the importance of data and harnessing that data, and then the role that the digital agency partner plays in all of this. So first of all, what are consumers expecting today? They're expecting simple and intuitive interfaces. They're expecting experiences that are personalized to them on a one-to-one level. They're expected to be empowered to self-serve at any time. Now, this is linked into the whole kind of mindset of the sort of Gen Z and sort of millennials that are all around 24/7, 365, always on, always instant expectations. And then they want consistency across those channels. So they want, regardless of whether they're interacting with your brand in the branch or whether they're interacting with you online through a web or through an app experiences, the conversations must be continuous between those. And if you fail to do that, brand trust takes a hit. So the fintechs have embraced this, and they've built sort of solutions that are tailor-made to meet these modern consumer needs, and they've built them from the ground up. So they've had that luxury that they've had that luxury of starting from scratch and not, and to be able to take that user-centric approach and not being held back by kind of, bloated technology stacks or technical debt that's restricting them from being able to do things, clunky legacy systems that are kind of have, restrictions around what's possible. So they've very much started from the ground up, and this is obviously like the ideal way to do it. A lot less pain, a lot less effort and testing needed to deploy these kind of solutions. And when they've built them, they've built them, with modern architecture in mind. So they're built, with modularity, scalability. They're built for interoperability. They're built for white labeling, to support that kind of fintech as a service approach, so to speak. And then we've also then got the Web3 fintechs who've taken things a step further and who are applying decentralized and blockchain technologies to meet perhaps tomorrow's consumer expectations. So this is an extremely vibrant space. There's a few examples here that are just showing some of the innovative new approaches that are at play to solve kind of traditional finance requirements. So if we looking up in the top right corner there, you've got Yield app, which is a provider similar to Nexo, and there's a number of others that kind of like centralized finance and investment platforms that allow people to very, kind of non-technical users to kind of create accounts and to very easily kind of start to earn yield on their investments in a nice, intuitive, simple way. The examples across the bottom there are other flagship projects in the DeFi space, within the DeFi ecosystems across different chains that are offering sort of crypto-based borrowing and lending protocols and products. So we've got Balancer, Aave, Compound. There's a number of these. And then up in the top left there, you can see a really interesting fintech in Web3 called Nexus Mutual. These are a crypto insurance provider who provide cover for things like the protocols. They cover if you're staking any digital assets somewhere, they'll provide cover for that, custody cover, things like this. But for me, what this really shows is the maturity of the space and the kind of the asset class holistically. And another interesting thing around this space is how they've actually developed their, through communities. So in complete kind of contrast to traditional finance institutions that are kind of quite closed door, black boxes, really. Decentralized finance organizations have really kind of built up on the back of their communities through sort of bi-directional conversation on platforms like Discord and Telegram. And through this, they've taken this whole new asset class to $1 trillion market cap. But I think what's really key here, the key kind of takeaway is that that regardless, I guess, of the technology you're using, community-based development is a real opportunity and a real winner. And we're starting to see that emulated across other sectors. So it's a great mechanism for building trust, building loyalty in your brand. If your customers can help shape them platforms as well, you end up with a platform that's been built with the user in mind. The big challenge, obviously, though, for these Web3 organizations is trust. There's been a lot of kind of issues in the space, through kind of fraudulent players and things like that have kind of, that has made their market penetration sort of, not as quick as they'd have hoped. So this is where kind of partnerships with Web2 businesses can really play a big role going forward. So we've also, whilst all this is going on, we've got the government is still there, putting the usual kind of restrictions on things. So we've got data privacy and security and trust related factors at play at all times. We've got financial regulation, and then we're also dealing with the legacy technology stacks that are in play. So it's still a bit of a minefield, and there's lots of things to navigate in terms of how you build out your technology stacks and your approach to data handling. So the new UK government is hoping that fintech will help rescue our economy, and the Chancellor, hopes that the new policies that it's putting in place will help sort of drive growth and innovation. And this has been through some revised regulation, hoped of basically giving the UK an economic edge over our rivals. The other commitment that's been made recently is for the digital pound by 2030. Really interesting development here, and what that will do is it will make crypto-based currency and the use of digital wallets basically will become mainstream, because everyone will need to use them to use the digital pound. So again, lots of opportunities through digital wallet technology in order for marketers to get closer to the customer, start personalizing at even deeper level based off wallet contents, for example, in the future. If a wallet has a certain NFT or a certain amount of money in it, maybe that gets them. So if you've got a certain amount of money in your bank account, that might instantly give you VIP access to something, so some VIP content on the website, because they're a premium customer, for example, whatever that might be. So, I mean, this is all based around the theory that companies that control data on everything someone spends, when and where they spend it, they'll be the ones who are sat on the priceless asset. And that was a quote from the Treasury. The other area is the proliferation of open banking. So this obviously was kickstarted in 2017 by the CMA as a way of increasing rivalry in retail banking. It was all about facilitating kind of smooth and frictionless transactions between businesses, and sort of reducing the use of cards, so you can have direct bank-to-bank communication. Now, this has had a really positive impact on the space, and has actually been acted as a real enabler for the change, because what it's done is it's meant that the technology stacks of the banks have now become much more agile, much more interoperable, much more scalable, much more secure, because we're now dealing with external sort of security, and ultimately much more portable, because what it's basically done is it's unlocked the banks to the ways that the banks are now communicating for open banking is through secure external APIs, which they didn't have previously, because they were all kind of closed-knit internal applications. But now it's kind of exposed that this is perfect to support, I guess, the way that the sector's going in general, and the types of architectures that we want to build. So the other trend that's coming across all levels is this kind of concept of decentralization, and I think it's an ambition of the youth to move away from big tech, and also to move to much more fairer community-based organizations, but then also much more kind of agile, modular, interoperable, portable, scalable systems. And then in terms of finance, products that again are community driven. And this is all about, really, the whole thing is about giving in in both, I guess, the way that the organizations are structured, and also how the modern finance products are really all about giving the smaller guy a voice, and the smaller guy a slice of the pie. It's an opportunity through decentralized finance products for the individual to lend directly and to earn a yield, or to borrow from the community so other community members can earn the yield. And this is the movement that's happening there. So decentralization is a trend across all pillars. So where's all this? So where are all of these trends leading, and what opportunities is it opening up? So basically, the end result, which the government hopes, is innovation and investment in the UK financial services sector. And what that basically does is it opens up these, all of these interesting things. So it opens up the concept of, hyper personalization. It opens up the opportunity to integrate, Web3 and blockchain technologies. It opens up the opportunity to, serve financial products in new mixed reality or metaverse-like experiences. It opens up things like, providing financial products through Internet of Things. At some point you'll probably be able to take a loan out through your smart fridge to buy the freezer, that kind of thing. Anyway, so we've got these areas that we want to unlock. So does that mean now we can just do these straight away? Unfortunately not, because there's two key pillars that we need to have in place first. We need to get the right solution architecture in place, and we need a rock solid data strategy in order to handle data in a compliant manner, but also to make it ready, to capture it from all the relevant points and to make it readily available. So let's have a look at these in more detail, starting with the architecture. So in order to deliver an experience that delivers on those contemporary needs of the user, we have to rethink how we approach architecture, and it needs to be flipped around to become much less of a technology driven approach, but much more thinking about a user centric approach to technology. So technology enables the experience and doesn't dictate it like it perhaps did before. Working as one. So this is about the different elements of the systems all talking to each other, but also having certain specific systems that are solving common needs across multiple platforms, single source of truth for assets, content, specific services, much more efficient, and data that's kind of readily available through APIs. But also the other thing we need to think is we're not in a position where we can just throw away our old technology. There's lots of legacy systems that are complex, that are kind of deep set into these kind of organizations. So it's really important that we look at how can we rethink the role of these platforms, and how can we sort of build on top of them or around them or repurpose them to continually serve the need of the user. So can systems be transformed to become engines or data oracles of some description instead, and then wrap some new tooling around on top of them? So with that in mind, here's how financial services kind of composable architecture kind of looks today. If we were to build something from scratch, and we might do it something like this. So what we've basically got, if we start from the bottom, the elements in red are, I guess, are the areas that agencies like UNRVLD can support you with. The areas in grey are those areas that are kind of require kind of joint collaboration, and then the areas in blue are your systems that we just need to integrate with. The boxes in red, we've got the key platforms that are going to be sort of providing the experience layer. So we've got the content manager, the headless CMS or the content management system, asset management platforms, that might be video platforms, it could be for your media assets and for your kind of image assets and PDFs and things like that as well. Customer data platform, the marketing automation tool, and then like an experimentation engine where we can continually do the optimization, A/B testing, M/B testing, all of that stuff, and then platforms for building out like knowledge base for customer services and things like that. On top of that, there's typically some kind of API layer or an integration platform or integration bus of some description that will basically will take all of these APIs and make them available in a kind of consistent manner for the applications above them to consume. And then we've got this new layer here, which you may not have heard about yet. It's kind of the new kid on the block, which is the digital experience composition layer. So this is basically, there's a number of different service providers now that are kind of basically providing like unification services, should we say, on top of all these APIs. Because in some applications, there might be 20 or 30 of these APIs coming in, and we don't necessarily want to have users needing to learn all of these systems. So there's layers going in on top where some of the heavy lifting is done in terms of integration, but also there's tooling in there for making the whole editing experience much more unified, as if it were all powered by a single system. So where we're getting, for example, things like visual editing products that are actually integrated with multiple. So you might have a visual editor that's integrated, say, with a commerce engine, with a content management system, with an asset management system, and then you've just got a nice user-friendly tool that's basically talking to all them back office systems. So you don't have to go and learn those other systems. You can just do it all through that front platform, or certain users can just use that front platform, like your content team. And they have the pre-built connectors. And then there's also this kind of layer is where you'll start to hear about like front end as a service providers. There's a number of these out there now that are starting to be acquired by a number of different platforms in order to do fast track front ends, basically, that are pre-integrated with a number of APIs. And then there's other kind of things that sit in this space are things like centralized support, where platforms are offering cross-platform support between the different vendors. Again, so you just have one place to go to for support. You don't have to go to the individual vendors. And then that layer is basically what then sends the content to the front end. And those front ends are all fully decoupled, can be any application on any platform, on any stack. So we've got websites, we've got apps, we've got maybe support, conversational AI systems, and then maybe there's finance experiences now that are built within mixed reality or metaverse or experiences, things like that. That's kind of a stack, I guess, that we're starting to move towards in this sector, not dissimilar to any other sector, all generally on the same trajectory. So we've got the platform in place. The next key thing is making sure we've got an appropriate data strategy, and that data is basically at the heart of all the thinking. So obviously, experience these days is more than a website. It's that cross-channel experience is across all touch points. We've got to make sure we're capturing consistent data across them and building those single profiles out. And then once we've got that data, it's making sure that we're using that to make the decisions day to day, and we're moving away from an opinion and assumption-based way of architecting and designing systems and experiences to a much more kind of data-led approach. And the key thing here as well is we can just do this incrementally. We prioritize the data that we need in order to make some decisions or to improve an experience. And we start with that data, and then over time we layer it up over time. It's better to build solid foundations and do some simple things than try and do it all and get it wrong. So in terms of the data architecture, the customer data platform, or CDP, is the new beating heart of all of this. And is kind of where we're seeing most of the conversations as an agency we're having at the moment are around implementation of customer data platforms and how do we get data to do smarter personalization. So yeah, this is how you do it. The CDP, you drop the tracking in across all your applications and you build that unified profile. So any events that are happening within any of your digital touch points, chat, messaging, through to mobile apps, website, but also you can layer into that offline transaction information. So if you have a CRM where you're capturing conversations that are happening in the branch, surveys, or you've got some other channels, trade shows, and anything else where you're capturing data that's kind of against a known user, that data can be pushed into the data platform and alongside all of those other fields that can be used for marketing. And then most interestingly, the data in the CDP can be enriched by the data that you've got in your potentially in your kind of cloud-based data warehouses or data lakes. So if you've got either field of data that you're capturing in there automatically, or data that an analyst is kind of extracting from that data and making available, that can be pushed back up. So let's say, for example, if you are a bank, you might be capturing some information around someone's spending habits. So perhaps you might have a persona of, I don't know, someone who spends most of their money Monday to Friday and someone who spends most of their money at weekends, for example. You might have a flag which is a data profile of like a profile which is, I don't know, weekend spender or midweek spender. And that's something, again, that can be used in terms of your marketing comms, because you might decide when to send your promotions out, for example, depending on when that user is likely to be spending money. That kind of thing, just as a crude example. But that could also be data that's being inferred from their use of cash machines, or it could be from their, any other data that you've pulled in. And then basically, once that's in, once that level of profiles created, that's when you can obviously do the super personalized, hyper personalized experiences across all your channels. So who's doing this well? Let's have a look at a couple of examples. So the first one is ClearScore. So ClearScore, if you remember, came out probably, it's about a decade ago now, or more even. But I remember when they came out, they really shook. They provided kind of credit checking services for the end consumer, who before never had access to their credit record without it impacting on their credit score. Because every time you asked to see your credit rating, you got penalized. Whereas this provided like an app in order to let you check your credit scores. So super important kind of piece of development, and product that's kind of really popular. So these guys built from the ground up. So they had again the benefit of being a startup. They put in all the latest tools. So they've put in the segments customer data platform that kind of aggregates all the data. That data is pushed into Amplitude, where it's used for basically to inform kind of in personalization and experimentation activities. The data is also pushed into their CRM, which is Blue Shift, which then informs like the offline interaction, and then data is also pushed into their warehouse. So a very modern stack with CRM, CDP, marketing engine, and data lake all working together to create this really nice personalized experience. American Express, obviously a much older business but these guys have still managed to create a really kind of sophisticated data infrastructure to do some really clever things. So what they've done is they've managed to pull all the data into these unified profiles, but then have been able to use that data to kind of predict churn and to identify like the most valuable consumers within their database. And what it's basically meant is that their personalization has led to their personalization now leads to a 3 times increase in their conversion rate, and they've also reduced cost per acquisition by 6 times. So again, these guys will have started from a legacy technology stack and undoubtedly would have been a more painful process to get to this, but just goes to show that organizations old and new can still deliver these great data-led experiences. So once you've gained control of the data, basically it unlocks the full potential of your ecosystem, and that's when you can start you can start using the data to kind of fuel artificial intelligence. The better data you're generating in a structured and accessible way, that data can then go into the engines of the AI tools and can start doing things like automated personalized recommendations. And the better the data, the better the relevancy of those recommendations. It also allows us to evolve at the right areas, because again, this is that point of moving away from assumption and opinion to actually honing in on opportunities that are identified by the data sets. And then obviously on the back of that, that's when we move towards this hyper personalization on a one-to-one level, because all of those barriers to this have been broken down. Okay, so a nice example of that is a bank called Ali in America, formed in 2017. And what they've done is they've basically they're collecting data from a whole wide set of data points, and then from that they're inferring life stage of the user, and then tailoring the messaging to people based on their stage in life. So rather than going out there and asking them specifically, you know, how old are you, what products are you looking for, etc., 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 they're tracking lots of data points and then using AI to inform to infer the stage in life, so without, to almost seamlessly deliver these experiences in a very sophisticated way, that's kind of unintrusive on the user in terms of data collection. Really clever stuff. So when you bring the composable elements of the system and the data together, that's when we can create these really seamless experiences. And having those APIs in play really opens up to collaboration with third parties, whether that's other fintechs or whether it's other specialist vendors that can basically enrich the user experience layer. It also allows us to better integrate and harness white label solutions, and they might be provided by fintech or another provider into your experience. And it removes the bottlenecks, because suddenly, once your data is in good shape and is accessible to marketers, and you've got the right tooling to deliver the front end, you can start removing development bottlenecks, because non-technical users can start building experiences using kind of no code kind of technologies. And a nice example of this is seen through Starling Bank, who I'm sure you'll all know. So customer centricity is baked into their DNA. These guys, this is a really nice example of how they've done all of the right things in terms of the composable architecture and the data model that underpins it. And what it's basically meant is that they can now kind of seamlessly integrate the services of platforms like Wealthify and PensionBee into their experiences without impacting the customer experience. If you go in there, those experiences feel completely native. The customer would never know what engines are underpinning it. There's no opening up there's no embedded things and opening up stuff in iframes and things like that. It's all nice and native. So what's the role of the agency in all of this? And and how do you partner? How do you know what to look for and who to partner with? Well, I think there's kind of four key pillars that support the development of these sorts of applications and experiences. And it all starts with digital strategy. You need to find an agency that has good strategy function that allows you to identify the objectives and opportunities that are out there for you, to set the vision, set the direction, and ultimately create like a phased roadmap that you can kind of iterate towards the future state. Anyone who says that you can do this all in one go is leading you up a path. Data and solution architecture we've talked about today. So as I say, vital elements of the system. So it's really important, if you're speaking to an agency, make sure that they have solid data strategists, ideally with some experience in financial services. Make sure they've got good technology strategists who can help you architect and select vendors for your composable stack, and then make sure that they've got robust solution architects who can help join all this together and design the underlying technical solution to integrate everything. Seamless omnichannel CX. So it's really important if you're operating across channels that you can find an agency that can design those experiences across all of them channels for you, because like we said before, the consumer expects a consistent experience. So we can't have jarring or conflicting kind of design systems between experiences and things like that. Again, that will just break the trust down. Finding someone who's got good case studies of cross-channel customer experience design and development. And then finally, business intelligence and optimization. So you need to find an agency that is data-driven and insight-led, and so everything, again, like we said, pin back to the data-led decision-making, but then who also can help you continuously refine and iterate your platform, and optimize for conversion, optimize the general experience as well, to ensure that you're always getting the most from the experience and delivering best on the customer need. Okay, well, hopefully that was useful. If you need any more information on anything you've seen today, please reach out at hello@unrivaled.com.